Hey nerds, welcome to the Nerd Rundown Presents I'm Batman, where today in advance of the newest Batman movie with Robert Pattinson, we'll be solely focused on one of, if not the greatest hero of all time, Batman. I'm Darren Simple. With me today are some of the biggest nerds I know, my co-pilots, Eric Hare.
Hello, everybody.
Big Morg 3000.
Hi.
And first-time host on Presents, Brian Castile.
Hi.
Just did a kick-ass job on the rundown, so
Yes.
like and subscribe to listen to, like and subscribe to listen to Brian Kick-ass. Oh man, Batman, guys. Been kind of looking forward to this episode for a long time. When you run a nerdy podcast, you're like, Batman's got to be a topic at some point to talk about. We waited all the way up until when you are listening to this episode, it will be the week of the release of The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson. I keep saying Pattinson, but we all know it's Pattinson.
Just embrace it.
Yeah, totally embraced. Very, very excited about this movie. We talked a little bit about our hype machine for it on the rundown, but quick around the horn. Quick thoughts in case you're watching this first before the rundown. Start with you, first-time host Brian Castile, the Batman with Robert Pattinson.
The trailers look great. I'm excited for it. That looks really cool. Really dark, gritty. Looks cool.
Eric?
Bruce Wayne as an emo Bruce Wayne is very interesting take, but it still looks awesome. So
just hopefully he's not emo Parker-ish in this. As emo Batman. Eric, you're pretty excited for this, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm a big Batman fan, so it was my first comic book guy. Really intro into comic books and stuff. So I'm curious what their take on it's going to be, but if the movie plays out as well as the trailer kind of makes it out to be, I think it's going to be pretty spectacular. So I think, we have a thought on here, and I think it's not anything original or whatever, but your villain, your hero is only as good as your villain. And I'm hoping that the villain in this, at least the guy they've got cast as the Riddler and stuff, it looks pretty spectacular. So I think
scary that's shit.
Yeah. He looks really good. So,
he looks real scary.
Yeah. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm pumped. I haven't bought my tickets yet, but I'm searching for a date and time here that I can get out and go watch it. So
yeah, definitely got to clear the schedule for it. I can't wait. Morgan, quick thoughts on the Batman coming up?
Hyped. That's all I'll say. I'm hyped.
Yeah. All right. Well, Batman is something that we could probably talk about all night. I've got some roundtable questions for us all to discuss. But as you guys know, I kind of like to always start with the why behind something. And the question of why is Batman such a great character or hero, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to start with probably our biggest Batman nerd, my co-pilot, Eric Hare. Why is Batman such a great character and hero to you?
It's kind of loaded. Originally, I think it's because I was never attracted to, like I said, the in previous podcasts and stuff when we've discussed superheroes and stuff. I like the fact that he's just a guy, and he's the tragedy of his background. How his parents are killed.
Spoiler.
Yeah, sorry. Been around for quite a while, so if you haven't figured that part out. but yeah, so just how tragedy follows him pretty much wherever he goes. So even when he brings in people, Robin, when he brings in Robin, multiple Robins are killed. Again, something we talked about in the rundown. Multiple great question by Meg about being the sidekick. So, tragedy just always follows him no matter where he goes, and
similar to somebody else up here on the wall.
Yeah,
who's,
right.
Considered one of the greatest heroes of all time. Tragedy just can't get away from it.
Yeah, you just can't get away from it. So that pull to be the vigilante, the loneliness of being the vigilante, or working outside of law enforcement, and so I think a lot of us, when you see the different toys that he has, if you will, which I think is something we'll talk about a little bit later, but the fact that and I think this gets overlooked a lot of the times, is the fact that he's the world's greatest detective. Like I absolutely love that he's the world's greatest detective, and that he's not just some guy out there punching bad guys in the face. That's not that's not always the part of what he does. It is part of what he does, but it's not everything. And so
it's not Daredevil waiting on a roof,
Yeah, I mean, and one of the cool things about Batman, and I'll talk about it later with some of the other questions, is the different iterations of the character. He is so complex that you can tell this story over and over and over again and have a little bit different spin on it each time. And everybody enjoys, for the most part, everybody enjoys it. Even the campy stuff, where you go to the Adam West, Burt Ward days, that was, it's
Shark
okay.
Spray.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
right. It's just, it's okay. Like, everybody watches and goes, oh man, that's great. That's a great Batman, and I don't think anybody goes, oh, it's terrible, I'd never watched that, but it's just that iteration of Batman for that time period is what they had, and so that's I think that is why Batman is, because he's like an onion or a parfait, or however Shrek says it, whatever Donkey says is a parfait, because a parfait has layers, so, he just he's an infinitely complex character, and you can really pull a lot of layers back and reveal more about him. I just think it's really
he's
cool.
Almost foolproof in that sense. I mean, honestly, when you really think about when has Batman not been good? There's two that come to mind. Don't leave the Batcave without it, and Justice League. At least Joss Whedon's Justice League. Everything else, Batman he's gold. He's an automatic win. He's foolproof. That's why I think he's just one of the greatest. I don't even mind the nips, but I think that's maybe a conversation for another show.
Yeah,
that's in the extended present.
That's in the adult. That's in the adult section of the Nerd Rundown. But it is he's just a character that you can relate to, but you can also suspend your disbelief and be Batman for a short time. I know I've run around my house as a kid with my Batman cape, jumping down the stairs, let the cape fly out behind me. There's just so many good things about Batman that we're going to get into. But Morgan, why do you think Batman is such an incredible hero?
I mean, his code was always a big thing. I'm not going to kill because that's what separates me from them. And if I kill, I cross that line, and now I'm no better. Now, arguably, he could have saved a lot more lives if he did just kill, but
Right. I think that's a good debate there.
Yeah, that could be a debate. And then it's something that made him big was his gadgets. Everything he had was cool. The car,
wonderful toys,
all this stuff. I think that was a big thing. They changed him because I know when Batman started, he was kind of like a detective. He carried a gun. So they changed them, and I think they did it the right way. And
I think isn't that first appearance of Batman right there?
Right here.
Right there.
Detective Comics.
Very cool.
Number 27.
Yeah, we got a whole question around it, but man, the grappling gun in the animated series is the coolest toy or coolest gadget of all time for me. Probably up there with the lightsaber. But Bryant, how are you on the scale of 1 to 10 Batman nerd, and why are you that number as opposed to any other number? I guess
that's a hard question. I'm gonna say a 7.
Okay. Now we know where you are.
Okay.
On the scale.
I've never read any of the Batman comics, at least not. I've watched most of the movies except Justice League. I think is the only one I haven't watched. And I think I don't know. I'd be higher if I'd read his comics, but I would be interested in reading the comics, especially the Frank Miller ones. I think I'd be really interested in, and I just haven't gotten around to it. And I think that would bump me up. But
yeah, The Long Halloween is like an incredible. It's just one of the best comic stories of all time. It's like a year-long detective story. It's really builds up.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I said to you earlier, like I think I'm a Batman movie fan, and that's mostly how I know Batman is. As Batman movies, but.
That's okay.
He's got a lot of
movies.
Staying power of movies, right? Like I don't think any other superhero could stack up to how many movies. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of freaking MCU movies now, but pre-MCU and like I don't know. But he's got enough depth and breadth to him that it just works to keep going back to him over and over again. So, I mean, we've seen the freaking origin story that Eric spoiled. For
I know.
I mean, we've seen
some guys about to be like, "Who's this Batman? I should check it out."
Oh man, what? He's an orphan? Oh man, I wish that had been a surprise.
Didn't see that one coming.
You tell me he's got a British butler, I swear.
Well, I think sometimes we can even figure out like the moment we became Batman fans. I mean, for probably most people around our age, their first foray into Batman probably was Michael Keaton's Batman.
Keaton.
In Batman 89, which I feel like it's just now the official title of that movie, Batman 89. It's not, it's just Batman, but Michael Keaton's first Batman movie, I've probably watched that movie 200 plus times. I'm not joking. It was definitely a huge part of my childhood. And I think that's where I first got into Batman. Where did you guys first get into Batman? Or if you guys remember how you first got into Batman? Eric,
Keaton.
You should start us off.
Well, I'm definitely the oldest.
Not you, Mark.
I'm the oldest guy in the room. So mine predates Michael Keaton's Batman. And so my first introduction was Adam West and Burt Ward. And that was my that was my take on Batman, because I was not a comic book person prior to that. I didn't read any comics, at least that I can remember, until I saw the trailer for Danny Elf or for
Tim Burton.
Tim Burton's Batman. Yeah. I think when I first, when they
Danny Elfman's Batman.
Yeah, right. When they flashed that Batmobile, and then he grabs that guy and he's, "I'm Batman," and I was like, what in the world am I watching? Because prior to that it was a very different Batman. It was the campy Batman, but what I didn't know was that there was a whole comic book world of Batman that existed, that they were pulling that material from. And so it wasn't that big of a stretch for the movie to do what it needed to do, because, in 85, Frank Miller had done 85 or 86. Frank Miller did the Dark Knight Returns, and it was a much darker, much, and Tim Burton's just imagination is just amazing, and he definitely has a quirky, I would say quirky, but a darker take on the world than
I'd say quirky.
Rest of us do. So
quirky's good.
Mm-hmm.
So to go from Adam West and Burt Ward's Batman to Michael Keaton's Batman was a bit of a shock, but it wasn't. It was amazing, you know, and Jack Nicholson's Joker was incredible. So that's my introduction, and then once I watched Batman '89. I then went and read The Dark Knight Returns. I think I've talked about the comic book shop that I used to go to when I had my paper route, you know, and I could remember, I could still remember they had a poster of it up in the, you know, up in the corner. And I remember I was like, oh my gosh, it was so cool. Like him jumping down with the lightning bolt behind him and stuff. And it was just like, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to read that thing. So, and you know, I saved for weeks and weeks to get that thing. And then once I got it, I read it in like 10, you know, like felt like 10 minutes. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. You know? So,
it's probably top 3 comic storyline of all.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no.
So that's. I don't think that was my introduction to Batman. You know, so I think you guys actually have it better, starting off with Keaton as Batman. You know, maybe a little bit better because you know the character's always been more serious for you than for me. It was the campy 60s, 70s. You know,
but even with that campy stuff, like you. It's like I watched the shit out of that Batman TV show when I was in 5th grade, leading up to Batman Forever.
Yeah,
I couldn't get enough. I couldn't watch Batman enough. I couldn't watch Batman Returns enough. So I had to also fill the time with the campy Batman TV show was on in the middle of the day, like 3:00 when he got home from school.
Yeah.
Like TV Land or something. I was like loving that stuff. So I get it. Like that there's a place in the world for Batman 66, or that's what the name of the movie is. But Brian, do you remember where you first got into Batman at, or how you first got into Batman?
Well, it's not that dissimilar from what Eric said, except that I didn't go as deep as him probably. But I used to watch the Adam West ones with my dad when I was little, like on Nick at Night or something.
Yeah.
And I wasn't into it, but like I would watch it with him sometimes. But I think for me, like all those like kind of 60s goofy TV shows like Dobie Gillis and Batman were like in the same section of my brain of like silly 60s jokes that my dad really liked and that like I would like to watch with him, but more like because he was into it than because I was into it.
Gilligan's
and then
Island.
totally.
Gilligan's Island,
exactly, stuff like that. And then when Batman '89 came out, I mean, I'm sure I was too young to have watched it, but I'm pretty sure I watched it. I think I've watched it in the theaters.
I feel like
I remember like being really into the character, and like my dad made me these like stenciled T-shirts where he'd like spray paint. He like cut out the Batman logo and like spray painted it on there, so I had it in like every color I could think of. That Batman logo. So
I used to draw the crap out of that Batman logo, just doodling in school. Mark, what was your first Bat tingle?
Yeah. I mean, the big one was the Keaton, you know, Batman '89. You know, kind of like everybody else. My first true introduction was the Adam West Batman. You know, watching it with my dad. But Keaton is where I really fell in love. That movie was just awesome. It was just an awesome movie. Still is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, I think it's really amazing that we're getting Michael Keaton Batman 30 years later in the Flash movie this year. It's like that's going to be really incredible to see. And we are big fans of Michael Keaton on this show. So, Batman is not only like just foolproof in his movies, but he's foolproof in just about all of, you know, any kind of medium that he shows up in, whether it be video games, TV shows, movies, comic books. So
Lego movies.
Yeah, Lego Batman.
Yeah, the Lego Batman movies are great.
If you guys like, where do you go back to Batman the most? You know, do you go back to playing a Batman game, or do you have a Batman movie that you watch? For me, I think the Batman Begins is maybe my most watched Batman movie or any medium. I I never got into the Arkham games, even though I really wanted to get into the Arkham games. But I think Batman Begins would be my answer on that one. And it's just a really great Christopher Nolan movie. So, you know, it saved Batman after Batman and Robin. Like, that's how bad Batman and Robin was, is it killed Batman. And people were wondering if we'd ever get any more Batman after that. So it was really great. It's not as rated as high as The Dark Knight, but for some reason I like watching Batman Begins more. Liam Neeson's incredible in that movie. Christian Bale, his voice is not as annoying in that movie, and maybe this is why I like to watch this movie more than The Dark Knight. But his Batman voice is, I think, perfect for that movie. It gets scary, man. There's some like scary ass images in the final act of the movie. So
the horse, the horse flame, the horse,
or even when Cillian Murphy's Scarecrow sees Batman, like he's a demon, and that shit scared me. Yeah. So I love that movie. But Brian, where do you go back to Batman the most? What's your favorite Batman medium?
I think those are different questions for me, actually. I think
okay.
Christopher Nolan's Batman's movies are my favorite of them. But I've probably watched the Batman 89 more times than the other ones. Like, I don't rewatch movies that I've already seen a lot. I really like to see new things, and so like it's a small selection of movies that I like go back to, and sure. Batman 89 would be on that list. So
wow, good. I like that.
But that isn't. I really like the Christopher Nolan ones. I think they're just really quality movies. The voice in Batman Begins is like the "pray to me" line. It's like
or swear to me.
Line. Swear to me.
Swear to me. Yeah, it really is
how he says that.
But it definitely changed. The voice changes for Dark. He goes from like it being like kind of gruffy to just being like a weird, kind of growl. I don't know, but I get you though on I mean, you watched Batman 89 as a kid growing up 1,000 times. You're gonna there's no chance of getting through the Dark Knight.
I know it's a lot to catch up to. It's true.
Eric, where do you go back to Batman the most? And I guess what is your favorite Batman medium? Because that's a good point, Brian. I think that is two different questions.
Well, from a medium perspective, it's definitely movies for me. I do enjoy the comic books, and I think that's where I think the comics books is where he gets fleshed out the most, and I think that's just because of the time, the amount of time that he's been on the pages of comic books, over so long. And so, and you can do stuff in comic books that you just can't do even nowadays with the CGI. I mean, nowadays with CGI, you can pretty much do anything, but prior to that, even with Nolan's Batman movies, and that's actually one of the things I love about the Batman movies that Nolan did was there's very, if any, CGI in any of those movies, very little, if any. And and so with that comes more of a realistic, more authentic Batman, I think, than some of the other stuff, that has come along afterwards, the Justice League and Batman versus Superman stuff. I not that I'm against CGI, but Batman is a practical superhero, and you don't need, for the most part, you don't need a lot of CGI for that stuff. I mean, hell, him jumping off that building in Hong Kong, that's a legit, that's a real stunt that a real man did, and like, it's crazy. That's amazing, and to film it in IMAX, brilliant. I mean, just absolutely brilliant. I remember seeing that in the IMAX, and when it filled that whole screen up, you were like, oh, I'm not afraid of heights.
You're like
but
this.
wow,
Like
you know, it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
looking down, and he's on the edge of that, and I'm thinking, man, Christian Bale's got some cojones, man, for standing up on the side of that building like that. But but yeah, so I would say my favorite. So for me, movies is definitely the favorite medium. My favorite Batman that I go back to. You know, what is my
or
favorite?
just like what do you like? Where do you revisit Batman the most?
Yeah.
So
I tend to agree with you, I and Bryant both. I probably have seen Batman 89 more times, but now that Batman Begins has come out, I've that's my go-to. Batman Begins is really my go-to. I just can't get enough of the origin story. It's not that I don't like, I like that he starts off, you know, in a ski mask and he's like, I just got to get out there and do something. Yeah. A stapler, you know, and it's like, I just got to get out there and do something. And this drive, this thing is in him. And, you know, and then at the end of the movie, you know, where Rachel goes through the realization that Bruce Wayne is really his mask, and he really is just Batman, and that he has to put on a mask to be Bruce Wayne, and that to me was really great. So you know, and I think that if anything, you know, the Burt Ward Adam West TV show, yes, they were campy, but they knew they were campy, and that was what they were doing. You know, that was what they were doing. So Nolan took that character, and Tim Burton took that character, and Michael Keaton took that character, and they treated it with respect, and they gave it everything they had. And so when you watch Keaton and you watch Tim Burton and you watch Jack Nicholson, and you what's his name? I had this watch up my ass for what's his name from Pulp Fiction, Christopher Walken. So you know,
I forgot about him.
But you know, you watch them in those Batman movies, and they took him seriously. They took the character seriously, and they treated the character with respect, and they gave him the justice that he was due. And same thing with Nolan. Like they treated that character with respect. When you watch the follow-on Batman movies with, you know, not necessarily with Val Kilmer. I know you like Val Kilmer, but those movies didn't treat Batman with respect, and you could see it descend further and further down until you got to Batman and Robin, and it was just like, it's just a joke at that point. Like we're all just showing up, we're all just showing up to get paychecks because we know Batman's going to sell, you know, and they didn't treat the character with the respect that it deserved, and you get what you get, you know, and that's what we had. So I think Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins is my go-to for sure. Yeah.
Well, Brian really kind of blew my mind with how he changed it up, because now that I think about it, I'm like, my favorite Batman medium is the Batman animated series. I go back to Batman Begins more than any other Batman thing, but my favorite Batman is the animated series. So I don't know. Where you at?
Yeah.
You love, what'd you say, Eric?
Well, I was just going to jump in on, I loved that they drew Batman, the animated series, on black paper. Like I loved that, really, you know, when they did that, they drew it on black paper to start with a dark thing and go from there. Like when I found that out, I was like, oh, that's like the little tiny things that you, again, they're treating the character with respect, and you know, and that makes a difference. So go ahead, Mark. Sorry,
it gives it like a charcoaly feel to it.
No, I was gonna say my favorite medium is probably the Arkham games. That because you kind of get to be Batman for a little bit when you're doing that, and you know, they're great stories, that they're very well done. As far as my go-to, it's the Dark Knight. That's when it comes to the Batman right now. That's my go-to. That I have a feeling that could change here pretty soon of what will be my go-to Batman.
Sounds like there's a Furby in the background.
Bold statement. So that
What were you
door
gonna say,
looked like
Brian?
it opened behind you.
What were you gonna say, Brian?
Oh, I was going to ask about the Arkham games. Is that the Telltale game, or is that a different one?
Not that one. It's the other. It's the third person. It's by the studio that
Isn't it Rockstar?
yeah, Rockstar that did
The Grand Theft Auto.
Jeez. Yeah. So it's more of like an open world style. It's very, very good.
Cool.
I think they first came out on the PS3.
Yeah, I think it's even gotten more open world as it's gone along, right? And there's like a spoiler alert for the last one. We don't know. Bruce might be dead or Batman might be dead, and then there's a new game coming out, which I feel like Arkham skipped PS4 altogether. Why do I have that feeling?
No, the Bat Tank one. The one where they did a lot with the Batmobile.
There was okay, that one is PS4. Like early days, maybe even a PS4, but the next one is the Arkham family. What's it called? Arkham Knights. Yeah, it's a Bat family. It's Nightwing, Batgirl,
Robin, and Red Hood. And if all four of us wanted to play together, you could play a co-op in that. So that game looks a lot of fun. I cannot wait for that. Didn't that just get delayed? I think it did.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a good twist up on that question there, Brian, because it is different. I haven't watched Batman animated series in a long time, but man, do I love that grappling gun? All right, so Eric said it earlier. You know, your hero is only as good as your villain, and much like this man right here, I'm pointing to Spider-Man for those people on audio only. Batman has one of the greatest rogue gallery of all time, rogues gallery of all time, if not the greatest. It's him or Spider-Man. They have the best villains. Mm-hmm. So you have some of the best stories because of that. You know, right. The Killing Joke with Joker is an all-time classic. Brutal. That's a good word for it. So let me kick it back to you, Morgan. Out of Batman's rogues gallery, who's your favorite Batman villain? Do you need some time to think about it?
No, I think my favorite.
You need some time to think about it more. I'll go to Eric.
Go to Eric. I need time to think.
I think you fell asleep there for a second.
Harvey Dent. I know that the Joker is the one that everybody thinks about, but Harvey Dent has always been. I think just the tragedy of Harvey's story, at least in some of the iterations of it, and him, what happened to him and all that stuff. So I like the Harvey Dent character, the fall from grace, that type of stuff. I think that's one of my favorites.
Good point.
I thought in the Dark Knight Returns, his not the Dark Knight Returns comic book series, that whole thing played out was really, really great. And then in Nolan's Dark Knight, they did a really great job. I don't want to talk about Tommy Lee Jones' version of it, but
no need.
Yeah, but yeah. So I mean, and I don't, had we gotten more Keaton Batman stuff, I was curious if they were going to do Harvey Dent with what's his name, with
Billy D. Williams.
Yeah, Billy D. Williams, Lando Calrissian. So I had that series
on that casting.
Yeah, had that continued on. I think that would have been pretty cool to see something happen with Harvey there in that particular case. So yeah,
and just to see Tim Burton's, his vision for a Two-Face. Like, what would that look like? So great point. Bryant, we're gonna give Morgan a little bit more time to think.
Make sure he's ready.
Harvey Dent's a great answer. Like I love
really
the tortured, like the tortured villain, and the sympathetic villain is really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, Joker's the scariest villain in my opinion. I mean, the like scary clown is like very effective, and that's essentially what Joker is, right?
Yeah.
But like, I think something interesting about Batman is that like Batman teeters on the edge of villain himself, right? Like Batman teeters, and so like you don't see as much of like we've had a lot of more sympathetic villains, I think, in recent media, which I love when they do that. Like Michael B. Jordan's take on Killmonger is a great example, or like even
Thanos.
Yeah, Thanos is a great one. Yeah, and you don't get as many of those like they're trying to do the right thing, but they're actually doing the bad things in Batman.
They think they're the hero of their own story.
More straight up villains in Batman. And I think it's because Batman himself fills that role of like the person that is trying to do the right thing, but is teetering on the edge of evil also. And like, and like when Morgan brought up his code earlier and how like that's a conflict, right? Like that's constant moral battle that he like has to face with himself is like, how far is he willing to go?
Yeah. And that is such a freaking fire take. I mean, Batman thinks he's the hero of his own story, much like Thanos thinks he's the hero of his own story. And I haven't really ever thought of it in that from that perspective. So I like that. Really great job there, Bryant. Morgan, have you had enough time?
Yes, I have. I have decided. It is for me.
I'll go real quick.
The Penguin. I'm picking the Penguin. I like all the versions of the Penguin that we've had and everything. And I like the way, I mean, Danny DeVito holds a special spot in my heart. So I'm partial to his Penguin, but I'm looking forward to the Colin Farrell Penguin. I like when they do the more gangster Penguin. I like that a lot. I like when they show that he's like a criminal underboss, and that's my favorite take of him.
I think we'll get that. We'll get that. And
I think that's what we're getting.
Yeah, well, my favorite Batman villain has always been the Riddler, and it's because, like, yes, Batman '89 was my first foray into Batman, and then we had Batman Returns, and that was really great too. But I went through this Jim Carrey stage as a kid, and I freaking loved Jim Carrey more than anybody in the world at one point, and then he became a Batman villain, and so. As a kid, I just was immediately loved the Riddler because of that. But then I started like getting into the Riddler as a character, and I've always thought that he could be what he's going to be in this movie, it's just like a Zodiac style serial killer who, is super brilliant. Some of Batman's best stuff isn't when he's high on action, but when he's like high on psychological thriller type stuff.
Detective mode.
That's why I like the Long Halloween is probably my favorite Batman story. And the Riddler really plays well to that aspect of Batman, that the mental aspect, because he's not beating Batman down with his question mark cane. He's got to beat him with his mind. And it's hard to beat Batman because he's so brilliant. Batman, I actually have a bat fact later on that I'll get to. I'll come back to that, put a pin on this, but bat facts. So I've always loved the Riddler, and I'm really, I think this is one of the main reasons why I'm really excited for the Batman, is because we're going to finally get that Zodiac style serial killer, psychological mind F of a character, and cannot wait. Cole Dano looks like he's at the top of his game for that role. But yeah, I mean, you also, Batman also has some really gray villains. Catwoman is a really great character. She's considered
on again, off again villain.
Yeah, big time. On
Slash
again,
girlfriend.
off again.
So
much like the Black Cat for Spider-Man, but she's a really great character. Nightwing, his sidekick, really toes the line as well. I think he might even more than toe the line on the Batman code, but just some really great characters in the Bat world too. So favorite Batman villain, that's an obvious question that's going to come up. The next obvious question that's going to come up is, who's our favorite Batman? We've had so many different kinds of Batmans, from Adam West to Michael Keaton to Val Kilmer to George Clooney to Christian Bale to Ben Affleck and now to Robert Pattinson. And that's just the movies. I mean, we've gotten there was a Gotham show where a kid played a young Bruce Wayne. I think he became Bruce Wayne at the end of that show. I think that's your show, Morgan.
No, he was Bruce Wayne the whole time.
You have Kevin Conroy.
He was Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, he was Bruce Wayne the whole time.
Yeah.
He didn't become
He didn't become Bruce Wayne at the end, you mean?
No, he was there the whole time. It's a crazy plot point.
I told you, Brian, I screw up all the time. We're just going to edit this out,
Perfect.
Not a chance.
But yeah, lots of different portrayals of Bruce, not to even mention Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman in so many in the animated show and so many other versions of Batman. So
Mark Hamill is the Joker.
Mark Hamill is a great voice actor. But who's your favorite Batman? I'll start with you, Eric. Who's your favorite Batman?
This is hard because there are two components to Batman. You have the Batman, and then you also have Bruce Wayne. And so it's not a cop.
Do you want to go like, who's your favorite Batman and who's your favorite Bruce Wayne?
So,
let's do that.
Right. Because my favorite Batman is probably Christian Bale's Batman. Like, I know that people don't like the voice or whatever, but he was the right size for the character. He was bulky enough to get there, but not too bulky. And thanks to Christopher Nolan. If I remember right, Christian Bale showed up like 20 pounds heavier, 20 pounds, like with 20 pounds more muscle on. Right. And Nolan was like, dude, you got to dial it back. Like this, you're way too big for who I've got in mind. So from a Batman, I love Christian Bale. I love Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne. Like I really bought him as this billionaire playboy guy, because that's kind of Ben Affleck's shtick, like I could totally buy him as, but I could also see him as the detective, like as a detective guy and kind of playing that role and stuff. But if you package it all together, he's not the best Bruce Wayne. He's not the best Batman, but Michael Keaton's Batman iteration is my favorite. I go back to that because he plays both characters very, very well. He has that balance. Michael Keaton. Yeah. He has that Michael Keaton charm and sense of humor that he plays, when they're in there, when Vicky Vale and they're in there, and he goes, this guy must have been king of the Wicker people, and he goes, it's Japanese. He goes, how do you know? Because I'm in Japan, and just like, but then the scene where he's with Jack and Vicky Vale, Jack Napier and Vicky Vale, and he smashes the vase, and all that stuff. I mean, you want to get nuts. So and then also him in the suit. It's a split. Like he's a tougher guy in that, so Keaton is. That's
a great answer. It's a great answer. I do think that you're right in that if you had to pick a balance, Michael Keaton would have the best balance. I think an underrated balance though is Val Kilmer. He gets a bad rap, but I thought he did a really great job as Bruce Wayne. He was believable as
you were a turtle
boy.
Man.
I know.
But so did Steve Jobs. So billionaires, it must be a billionaire thing,
Yeah, right.
he did a great job as Batman. I believed him in the action, and we're gonna have a Val Kilmer episode as well someday soon, as he's one of the all-time greats. But Brian, who's your favorite Bruce Wayne, and who's your favorite Batman?
I think my favorite Batman is Will Arnett.
Yes.
It really is. Really is. That's a good answer.
Tongue in cheek, but he's
Lego one.
pretty great.
He's in the Lego movie. Might be the best Batman ever. Throws 1,000 of his Batman. Yeah. He's like, oh, got it first time.
Got it first time. Yeah, that's pretty good. And it's like in the Lego movie too, when he's like, yeah, we're fly. I don't know. There's this whole song and where he's like trying to convince her the Gotham City guys are better than Superman.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's pretty good.
So brilliant.
I think my serious answer is Christian Bale though. I think what he does in Batman Begins with the voice. I like the voice, and the voice is so different from his Bruce Wayne voice to his Batman voice, more than
anybody else.
I remember seeing that, before. Yeah. So and I thought that was really cool, and I think
really
he
clever.
Really pulls off the I don't know if this how true to the comic books his Bruce Wayne is, right? Because his Bruce Wayne's very different than Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne, where Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne is this quirky loner billionaire that is socially awkward. And that's really charming in its own weird Tim Burton kind of way. But it's very different than Christian Bale's I'm gonna go out as a drunken moron as a cover for and I don't know if I were Eric and had actually read the comic books, I'd probably have a feeling about which Bruce Wayne I like better. But as a 7 out of 10 Batman fan, I really like Christian Bale's Batman and Bruce Wayne.
Nice. That's good. I mean, it's hard to you can't complain about Christian. I mean, you can complain about the voice, but you can't complain about the performance, especially as Bruce. I think he does a great job. Believable as in that role, in both roles. So
I would love to hear Eric's rebuttal at some point of which one's more true to the comic book. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut off more.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Do you have a rebuttal to that, Eric? Or do you?
I think that would probably take too long, so I think we should probably
another episode.
This would be a conversation for another time. Although I do have to, before Morg gets going, the Lego Batman movie is brilliant, and I think just because we just talked about villains, let me list off Clock King, Zebra Man, Orca, Tarantula, Crazy Quilt, Killer Moth,
Condiment Man,
the Mime, King Tut, Catman, the Calculator, Gentleman Ghost, March Harriet, Zodiac Master, Calendar Man, Mr. Polka Dot, Kite Man, Eraser, and you said it, Morg, the Condiment King. Yeah. So those are all legit villains from somewhere in Batman's past,
That's awesome.
that they brought back for the thing. And Joker's seriously? It's
right.
That's not real. It's the Condiment King. It's that's not real.
My 8-year-old son loves Catman, and he doesn't know very much, but he just loves the character design of this red and yellow version of Batman with claws on his hands. It's Catman's the best. And my mom won't believe it's a character. She's she thinks he's mixed up every time. She's you mean Batman? His name's Batman. She won't believe it.
I think that is a genius movie. The Lego movie was genius in its own right. So, Morg, have you had enough time to think about?
Yeah, I think I got my answer. I knew right away what mine was. I've got it's the same one for both. It's Ben Affleck. I think he is the best of both worlds that we have seen to date. He has that build and feel of an older Batman. Just very hardened, violent. Because at this point, he's just kind of F it, and he looks it too. He is big. He is a big guy. Like when you see him working out, like Christian Bale is built, but he's like that skinny build.
Yeah.
Christian Bale was that bulky, just powerhouse.
Ben Affleck,
Or Ben Affleck, is that powerhouse look. And I think he was best of both worlds.
Honestly, the warehouse scene is like the most badass Batman scene of all time. And so having a Batman that fits that scene, it's really hard to pick your best Batman. Like this is who's the best Peter Parker and Spider-Man type villain or question. But Michael Keaton for me is my favorite Batman. And then my favorite Bruce is probably Ben Affleck as well. I tend to agree with you guys. He's a great, he plays a really great reclusive, but still able to interact with society in those movies. So he doesn't feel out of place when he goes to those parties, but then he's still just kind of all by himself at the parties as well.
I think Ben Affleck's Batman really captures the anti-hero side of Batman the best too, where I haven't seen Justice League, but in Batman versus Superman, he's in a lot of ways the villain of that movie through a lot of and you really see that kind of tortured, trying to do the right thing and not sure where the line is, so that side of Batman, I think he captures really well.
Yeah.
Very well. I think we're going to see a really good take, a really different take on Batman with Robert Pattinson too. I'm excited to see what he does with the character. So far, impressed. Yeah. Way more impressed than I thought I would be when they said Edward Cullen was going to be Batman. So, now Batman, he can be oversaturated. He's the money for Warner Brothers, for DC. So he gets put in. He can be too much Batman. Is it because it's too much Batman, or is it just become an oversaturation where you're like, I'm okay with no Batman for a while? Kind of a little bit of a difference in there, maybe a little bit more nuanced than originally thought when I had that question. But I think there was a point where I was like, I'm kind of done with Batman for a bit. I think Dark Knight Rises was also a letdown in a lot of ways. And at that point I was like, okay, let's be done with Batman for a while. And then 3 years later, we get Batman versus Superman. I don't know, Brian. What do you think? Can Batman be overrated or oversaturated?
No, I think Batman can be done poorly, and I think that's all we've seen is that we've got multiple series where it kind of ends. We've got Batman and Robin ends their run of that kind of 90s Batman, and then Dark Knight Rises. Yeah, but I think that's what you see is that and you see the same thing with other hero movies, in the Spider-Man series. It's the last one in each of those series is the worst one, and you kind of lose an appetite for more sequels when the last one they did doesn't live up to the expectation.
Right.
But I think the fact that Batman keeps coming back shows it's not about the character. It's not that we have a lack of appetite for the character. It's just that we have high expectations maybe for the character, and there've been some really great shows made with him. So I think it's justified. So that was a really good take. That was really, really good. Morgan, what do you think?
You're gonna make me go next. I don't think it's oversaturated. I think my thing is I need them to start building on something bigger. So that's why I'm kind of getting a little over it. I'm excited for this Batman, but I'm also again, here's another Batman that I'm 98% sure isn't going to really be tied to anything, and maybe we'll get a trilogy out of this. Who knows? And that's it. I think that's kind of where I'm at with Batman.
Another fire take. I like it. Eric, you got anything different on that other than those two? That's I think
perfect
answers.
Yeah, I think both the guys are right. I think they just, and it's not that Nolan and them didn't tell a good story with Batman, Dark Knight Rises. It just didn't come together, like coming off of the Dark Knight. I just didn't see how you were going to get better than that. I think the latest iterations of Batman with Ben Affleck and stuff, it's like they're trying to do what Morgan is saying, where they want him to be connected to other stuff, but you should have introduced Ben Affleck as Batman just by himself and and tell a story then, and before you throw him in with Superman, who you've already given his own independent movie, like with Wonder Woman, the way they did Wonder Woman, and that was not so bad. Like you introduce her as a character, and then you give her an origin movie herself, like that's perfectly fine. But for at least in the way that looked to me, like you could introduce that character at the very kind of tail end and have her come in and kick butt, and everybody's like, is she with you? And I thought she was with you, that type of thing. It's like, okay, I want more of that character. Like I want more of that, whereas with Ben Affleck and that Batman, I couldn't get past the voice. I had a really hard time with that.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
I liked the way they did the voice.
I liked it. Yeah, I liked it.
But I think Batman is timeless, and I think as long as you, going back to my original theme, if you treat the character with respect, and he can provide you with an endless supply of stories, but even after a while, sometimes you just need a break. Sometimes you need to let the character rest and then bring him back and kind of revive him. So I think you're right, Morg. I think this Batman movie that they're making is going to be a great standalone Batman, but I don't think it's going to be tied into anything else unless DC pulls a rabbit out of a hat somehow. It's gonna, maybe an end credit scene where they throw in The Rock somehow as Black Adam, like they bring it in somehow. I don't know how
the guy from Fortnite.
Yeah, so we'll see. Yeah. I don't know, but I think you can overplay a character, like anything. I think anything can be overplayed. You can get too much of it. Too much of a good thing can happen, but I don't think it's the character that runs out. I think, like Brian's right, I think it's the writers or the producers. They just get tired and they run out of ideas, or they just run out of motivation to do it anymore. It's like that's where you get Batman and Robin, is just, hey, it's going to be a cash grab. So that's where I'm at.
I wonder if they give up too soon sometimes too. Like
totally,
like, Morgan, when you're talking about like there've been so many takes, and like they need something that builds on each other. Yeah. Like I don't think there's any reason that Ben Affleck's Batman couldn't have been the future version of Christian Bale's Batman, or that even like Robert Pattinson's year 2 Batman couldn't be the Batman after Christian Bale's Batman and before Ben Affleck's Batman. But like, I mean, they're like, every time that they have a movie that isn't like stacking up to their predecessor, they're like, let's just start over. We'll do that scene where Pearl's fall on the ground one more time, right? Like,
your mom's name was Martha too.
Now that is Martha. Okay, I think that was like the worst Batman moment. I don't know. Maybe it probably wasn't worse than the Bat card never leaves the Batcave without it, but it's two big low points in the Batman lore right there. Fire takes on that one, guys. I got nothing that I can add value of that. So
what's your actual take though, Darren? Like, can he be played out?
I felt like he's gotten played out, but I think you're right. when you say he's just like he wasn't well done in The Dark Knight Rises. He wasn't well done in the Justice League. So I'm like, he wasn't well done in Batman and Robin. So if he's not done well, why would I want any more of that? So it plays into that in the sense of they're not one and the same, but they are connected, can be connected in the sense of not done well, then he feels oversaturated, and it can lead to being he's overrated. So I mean, you look at like Iron Man, his trilogy, not that good. Like in the comparison of other Marvel trilogies, Captain America, he got better with every story he was in, you know? So you want to see that kind of escalation and then say goodbye to the character like we got to with Cap. So you haven't really got that with Batman. One of the cool things about Batman, if not the coolest thing, is, and it's perfectly said by Jack Nicholson's Joker in Batman 89. Where does he get those wonderful toys?
Yeah.
Got some of the best gadgets, and I'm not talking like Iron Man nanobite gadgets. I'm talking like grappling gun kind of gadget. Why can't I think of his batarang? His batarangs.
You got it.
He's just batarang. He's got some of the coolest toys. Not to mention his Batmobile's the sexiest superhero vehicle of all time. But also, I freaking love Batman 89's Batwing. So cool. So he's got. This is like one of the reasons why you love Batman. What is your favorite gadget that is that Batman has, Eric?
Well, you hit it right there towards the end. Dude, that scene in Batman 1989 where he is flying in the Batwing and he puts it up against the moon that, and then just dives down. And I was like, wow,
so cool.
You know, oh my gosh. I think it was 12 or 13 when that movie came out. And I remember seeing it in the theater and I was like, what? That scene was so cool. And if you bought, because you and I are movie score fans, if you bought the movie soundtrack, it had a bunch of pop songs on it, had a bunch of Prince stuff, you know, and all that. But if you bought the score, Danny Elfman's score, it had that picture. It had that very picture on there, had like the cloud layer and then the moon and you know the Batwing and stuff in there. So when the first time I saw the Batwing, I was like, oh my gosh. But I think that between that and the tumbler from
pretty cool tumbler
from Batman Begins, you know, when he just, and again, charming scene between him and Morgan Freeman where he says what's that? And then Morgan Freeman gets that. Morgan Freeman gets that look at him. You wouldn't be interested in that. So yeah, I think those are my two favorite. But you brought up a really good one too. The grappling gun it's a staple, you know, of who he is. So yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, the one out of the animated series is my favorite one. But I do love that they brought that back in the Justice League movie with Ben Affleck. Brian, you probably have a bunch of Batman toys hanging around your house with having two boys. Yeah. What's your favorite Batman toy?
My favorite one of Batman's toys, utilities, is his cape.
Hell yes, I'm a big cape guy. I love capes.
Like his cape is functional, you know. Like I love when he turns it into a glider, and I love when he turns it into a shield. Like the scenes where he like puts it up and blocks some bullets, or like I love the ones where he like goes down in an explosion and like covers somebody that's protecting or whatever.
He had a good one in Batman Forever. In fact, there was like a whole cape scene where he flies down from the top. And it's just one of the, like, as a kid who walks, runs around the apartment complex or the house with a cape on your back, you just always want it flapping. And then Batman Forever, he jumps down from the building into that tube, and it's kind of a trap, and the fire comes over him. He pushes that button, and it's like a fire protection. Anyway, I just got out real quick on that
costume, and it's pretty good. It's a good costume.
What color is it, or what's it from?
Black. It's from a Halloween costume, but our Halloween costumes become forever costumes. Like our kids would wear them to school if we let them. But
right, yeah.
I think you should let them. It'd be awesome to see you guys walking down the street.
Time for school.
Morgan. And I love the cape answer because I'm a big cape guy, Brett.
Yeah.
Love it.
I think his best utility that he's ever used was the bat shark repellent. It saved his leg. He was
Talk about being prepared.
Yeah,
talk about being prepared.
It was effective. No, my favorite is the Batwing from Batman '89. That just
it's so cool.
When you first see it, then you fall in love, and then of course that iconic moon scene is just awesome.
I had the Batman Forever Batwing as a toy. And it was cool because the wings could come off because it became a sub. But it still was. But it was like more like it wasn't like the logo. It was just like a really long forward wing, really probably very not aerodynamic. But the Batwings probably that's just the coolest thing.
And to kind of go back a little bit. Tim Burton's vision for, because prior to, I think it was a Pontiac Le Mans or something like that, but the original Batmobile was that open air car that they had for the the Adam West, and it was a cool looking Batmobile. Like you had like the jet engine on the back, and you were like,
back then,
cool,
super.
But then when they reimagined that Batmobile in the 1989, I mean, that thing was freaking cool, man. I mean, it had that big intake on the front, and it was long and it was sleek, and it was, and then it had the big afterburner on the back, and I was like, oh my gosh, that thing is the coolest Batmobile I've ever seen.
Shields. Or I love that scene where he just stands in the street and he goes, stop. It just stops right it's like stops right at him. I mean, it's so cool. I'm such a big cape guy. I think it's one of the reasons why I'm not as big of a fan of the TDK and the Dark Knight Rises movies and Batsuits, because his cape doesn't necessarily, it doesn't do anything. It's not functional. He has it like tucked back behind him most of those movies. It was bigger and better in the Begins movie. But you think back to some of the scenes like in Batman '89 when he jumps down the stairs and he flies down with his cape towards, he kicks the gun out of Joker's hand, and he uses his cape so much more in those movies. And Batman Returns, it turns into a glider, and I'm nervous about Robert Pattinson's movie to see if the cape actually gets some love.
Too much cape play.
I love that in Begins, like. It gave it like the functionality of like, this is how it can help you glide. It was a cool little world building moment there. So he's got the best toys. I mean, he can't argue with that. Some of the coolest looking toys as well. Best member of the Bat family. I think this is one of those quick things you throw out. Who's your favorite sidekick of Batman's? And if anybody says Alicia Silverstone, it's Batgirl, you're getting kicked off.
Throat punched.
Let's start with you, Morgan. Who's your favorite member of the Bat family?
Favorite member of the Bat family. I like. Not Alicia Silverstone's Batgirl, but I do like Batgirl, and especially when she becomes Oracle, becomes the girl in the chair. And she also was awesome in season 3 of Titans on HBO Max. She's the Oracle character in that, but post Oracle, she's moved on from that role, and it's really neat. I really like the way they portray her in that show.
I love that answer because number one, there's a like a superhero girl show with all the DC girl characters, and she's the best character. Batgirl's the best character on that show. I also love that she's Barbara Gordon. She's Commissioner Gordon's daughter, and how that ties into the whole thing of the Bat family. How she ties into the Bat family with that is really really cool and really clever. Eric, who's your favorite member of the Bat family?
She went to the Harvard for police, right? She Barbara Gordon went to the Harvard for police, I think is what they said in the Lego Batman movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was like, is this a real question?
yeah. I was like, maybe.
I need to watch that movie again because
Harvard for police. Like when they introduce her.
I need to watch that movie again.
Oh my gosh, there's so much in there that they sneak in, just like these little lines like underneath that you're like, oh my gosh, it's just so funny.
And everybody's like Robin's funny, Alfred's funny in that.
Yeah. So I would say real quick, I want to say Robin, but I don't like every iteration of Robin. I think I have enjoyed just about every iteration of Alfred.
That's a really good point, actually.
I think every Alfred I've ever seen, I've enjoyed. I haven't seen a version of him that they don't really do a good job with. The guy from the '89 was a very stoic. You didn't really get to know
your
him,
typical butler,
but he was
lovable.
He was perfectly fine, and he was actually quite charming too. Just in a couple, the scenes that you got to see with him, and
very lovable.
And then of course,
Mike O'Kane.
Mike O'Kane was great. And then Jeremy Irons, I thought was really great as
he was. I was surprised at how much I really loved Jeremy Irons. Like he was a great guy in the chair, Alfred. Like you could see he probably had a badass background.
Yeah.
And even Andy Serkis looks like he's going to be a good Alfred.
Yeah. I think he is. And even if you watched the Alfred show that they had, Pennyworth, I thought was pretty good. I enjoyed it.
I did not watch it.
Yeah.
I like the Alfred.
They give him a badass military background though, right?
Yeah.
So I like the Alfred from Gotham. Good. The one from the Gotham show. He was a good Alfred too.
I never watched it. I never watched Gotham. But
it's very cheesy.
I couldn't get into it.
It's
cheesy. I could not do it.
He's a good Alfred because they do that military background too, and he actually has some action in it. And he's like a tough Alfred. He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Brian?
I would say Dick Grayson as a character is pretty cool. I think what I like about his Robin, I mean, he's like the main Robin kind of, but I like that he grows up and becomes he starts as the boy wonder, but he grows up and becomes a leader and a hero in his own right. And I think that's really cool. And that I think that's in all of his representations. My kids like those Teen Titan characters, and he's team leader there, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But Nightwing is a really cool character, and I love the parkour thing with Nightwing. It's very cool. So yeah.
I think one of the a movie if you could say, okay, Darren, pick a movie that could be made. You get to pick the storyline, you pick the director, the actor, blah blah blah. I think we really got robbed of a really great Nightwing movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I thought that was such a missed opportunity.
Such a great lead into what could have been an amazing continuation of that storyline.
Yep.
Man, would love to see that. And we don't see Joseph Gordon-Levitt much these days. He could come back any day. And
great in everything he does. He's great in everything he does. I couldn't agree with you more. I was actually thinking the exact same thing. I was thinking, how do I work in Robin from Joseph Gordon-Levitt's Robin. You know, I mean, when they
It's such
say
a
that
dumb scene there.
Yeah.
when they say it at the end though, and
Robin.
you're like, oh, you know, like I remember when she said it, I was like, what, you know, and I was like, oh my gosh, are we going to get more of like what's going to happen, you know, like and then we got nothing, you know, nothing. They never did anything with it, you know, which
so there was a badass fan poster of him in the Nightwing costume in the style of like the Dark Knight Rises poster. It was really cool. Such a great tease for what could have been.
Yeah.
So let's finish up with some bat facts. Some of these were very, very interesting. So 7 actors have portrayed Batman on the movie screen. Doesn't include TV shows. He was originally called Birdman. Glad that didn't work out, but worked out for Michael Keaton, if you know what I mean.
Should have been called Daredevil.
Yeah, right. I think he won an Oscar for something like that.
Bruce Wayne's IQ is 192. Albert Einstein's was estimated to be 160. So
wow.
Bruce is really wasting
pretty
his
smart,
brain.
Yeah.
200's like the max that it can like even possibly go. So, like,
Right. Yeah, this also surprising. I thought he'd be worth way more. It says he's worth an estimated $6.5 billion. I feel like he's worth more than that. This also says Batman has had more stories written about him than any other fictional character. He has appeared in almost 6,500 comic books, 44 video games.
That's where you get the Condiment King from.
Yeah.
And I don't know when this article was written, but it says 8 live action movies. I feel like there's been more than that. So maybe this came out around, this article is from around Batman versus Superman, but maybe not. I don't have to really think about it. Batman 66, Batman 89 Returns, Forever, Batman Robin.
Yeah, no.
Dark Knight trilogy. Yeah. So that was still needs 2 more. Yeah. 2 more. Yeah. So 10 total movies. Also says he's a master of 127 martial arts disciplines.
Wow.
I don't think that's
a lot of time on his hand to learn that.
A little OP, if you ask me. So it's been really fun talking Batman with y'all. I love Batman. He's had his place at number 1 on my list at times in my life. I don't know if I've ever been more excited for a movie other than Endgame, but if one came close, it was probably Batman Forever back when I was in 5th grade. So it was just he's a great character, and it's fun talking about him with you guys. Can't wait for the new Batman movie.
Yes,
we're always down for a new Batman. So any last thoughts on Batman, guys?
No.
Anybody want to give their favorite Batman quote? How about that?
Stay cool.
Nice to meet you.
Killed the dinosaurs.
Yeah, the Ice Age.
The Ice Age.
Oh man, no.
You know, it's completely inappropriate, and it's actually not. It's not by Batman, but I think it's one of the funniest lines ever. Christopher Walken in Batman Returns, where he's talking about Selena Kyle because he kills her.
I know what you're gonna say.
Throws her out of the window, you know, and then she comes back upstairs, you know, and throw her out again, you know, and he says that bee comes back again, I'm gonna throw her out of a higher window. I have never forgotten that quote, man. Like, it's like only Christopher Walken can.
Oh man, the way he delivers is perfect.
The way he delivers it, but yeah, you know, I from a quote perspective, I think I really enjoyed Christian Bale's take on the character. I really did. You know, I think one of the ones that when he's talking to Alfred about something, and they just have this little banter back and forth. I think it's when he's doing the gun the gun scene, you know, they're going back and forth, and he goes, is it loud enough? You know?
Yeah. I do love their back and forth.
They had great chemistry with each other, you know, the two of them.
They really do.
Everybody's like,
he says, I'm not sure you made it loud enough.
Yeah, not sure you made it loud enough.
Not sure you made it loud enough. And great little detective scene there.
Right. Yeah, where they recreate the fingerprint stuff. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. What were you going to say, Mark?
I just love when they're doing he needs to take out a car. And he's like, I need something discreet, you know, the Lamborghini.
Right.
He's like, yes.
Lamborghini then. Yeah. The Lamborghini then.
Much more discreet.
Yeah. He really brought the snark in those movies. Michael Caine. Brian, you got a favorite quote?
Swear to me. That's pretty good.
It is pretty good.
Classic.
What, your kids don't eat falafel?
I do love that movie. I think about that every time I'm around falafel. They don't like falafel? He's like
kids to feed. What, they don't want falafel?
He's got like lettuce hanging out of his mouth.
Yeah. Such a dirtbag.
You want to get nuts.
Yeah, let's get nuts. Yeah, it's hard to pick a favorite quote. I mean, I love all the iterations of I'm Batman. Why'd you say that name? Why would you say that name?
Where are they?
So I love Batman. We can talk Batman more. I'm sure we'll have more Batman episodes. We'll figure out another way to throw it in there. So Bryant, and Kill It On Rundown, Kill It On the Presents. Love having you on.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Yeah, you are welcome back on anytime, and you should not have any fear of not doing well, because you were awesome.
If I just pretend that red recording but light isn't there, then I'll be okay.
That's all you gotta do.
We're like a stick.
Put some tape over there.
It's just stick. Yeah. No, you did great. I'm really proud of you. Loved having you on. So, gentlemen, great takes tonight. Love it. I can't wait to listen to the show, and can't wait to see the Batman in theaters March 4th.
Get your tickets now.
Get your tickets now. Listen to this podcast in preparation, and like and subscribe wherever you are. And with that being said, we'll see you next week on the Nerd. We'll see you next week on the Nerd Rundown Presents.
Deuces.
See ya. Bye.
Gets them every time.